Good.
Good, okay. So we're going to finish the TPA today. We're going to finish talking about it, I should say. So we will start with task 5. You notice everybody's together now, so we were split for elementary and secondary for the middle tasks just because there are usually some differences to talk about. But now we're all together, and so we're going to talk about 6 and 7 mainly. And it won't take very long, and then, but I'll start with 5 to see if you have any questions, because I ended both groups with just telling you enough about 5 that I think I've probably told you enough, but we'll see. So maybe I've told you enough. Any questions on 1 through 4 then? Any questions on 6 and 7? Okay, all right. Well, I was going to say, maybe I don't even need to talk about 6 and 7. All right, so we're good. We've started. We know what our unit is going to be on, and we are thinking of pre and post test. Okay, and because what we're going to do today is look at how we're going to record the data that we get from the pre and the post. So hopefully you're marking, or you marked on your pre-test the questions pertaining to each goal. It'll just help you. I mean, if you didn't, it's not a big deal, but it will help you when we get to task 6. All right, so let's look at task 6.
Which file do you want?
Let's look at the template. So on task 6, this is impact on student learning. And basically what you're going to be doing is recording the data that you gathered from the pre and the post to see if your teaching had an impact on their learning. So in the template, there's a chart. Right here. And so you're going to be putting in information about your students. I thought 1 and 2 said focus student 1 and focus student 2.
It says that on the spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. All right, so you can get ready to pull that up too.
I already have it.
Oh, you have it ready, okay. So
We're Batman and Robin. We've got this.
So anyway, this is the chart that you're going to fill out with all the information. So you're going to list your students. Now you're not going to list them by name. Okay, so call them 1, 2, 3, 4. Call them A, B, C, D. Someone asked, can we put initials? You can put initials as long as you don't identify me. Nobody's going to go looking to see who A, B is in your class. Hopefully not. And you want to put focus student 1 and 2. So FS1 and FS2, so that we'll know who those are. On the charts that we're going to look at here in just a second, they're always 1 and 2, so it might be easier for you to put them here as 1 and 2 so you're not getting confused. You're going to put a pre-test score, and you're going to put a post-test score. And then you're going to tell whether there was a positive or a negative gain. Okay, some people just put a plus or a minus, some people will put points. You know, they come up 2 points, so they put a +2 or a -4. Anyway, this column is just for you to look at to see, hopefully you've got all kinds of pluses there, because you want students to have gained some information from the time they took the pre-test, you did your teaching, and then hopefully their scores came up. And then you have the learning goals, okay? So if you have 20 learning goals, you're going to have 40 columns here, but 20 here. And if you need to add to this and you can't do it, I think we said the easiest thing was copy and paste below.
I was just going to say, you want to copy and paste the whole table.
Okay, and just do it over and over and over. So you've got 4 here. So if you have 20, then you're going to have 5.
Renumber the learning goals to match.
Are you with me? Because it makes it difficult when you try to put them extra columns in here and have to squeeze it together, and you're not going to have enough room. So you have 4. These will match your goals from task 2. And what you're going to do is you're going to determine whether each student individually mastered that goal. So you're going to check yes or no. And then this column out here for the comments, this is maybe the student had the flu. That's going to be common right now. And he or she was out for the pre-test or for the post-test or for a lot of instruction in the middle. And so you just want to note that, because on the pre-test, maybe the student had a 7 out of 10, and on the post-test, ended up with a 2 out of 10. And so, not sure, that sounds to me like there was a lot of guessing going on, because if they knew it before your instruction and they don't know it after your instruction, something's going on. But anyway, you might put some notes. This student was out the entire time of my unit with the flu. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe the family decided to go on vacation and the student was out. Maybe there are other circumstances that you know about, but you just want the evaluator to know why there's such a discrepancy in the scores, or why the students did not master the goals that they should have. Okay? Do you have to put something for every single student? No, you do not. Are we good? Okay, why don't you pull up the chart maker. So in chart maker, when you fill this in, go ahead and you'll notice across the bottom, all your little tabs, it's telling you learning goal, pre-test, post-test, all of the graphs that you're going to do. So you're going to complete them, and then it's going to generate the charts for you. So go to maybe the second tab. So here, you'll notice focus 1 and focus 2. Those are your 2 focus students. You're going to put their scores into the template. Okay, that's going to be the number, and it will tell you if you, down here it's going to be the, whether they got it right or wrong. Up here, or how many they got right or wrong. Up here, if you click on the little red triangle, it tells you what format to put it in. For instance, for the mastery score number correct, that's how many did they get correct. Okay, and then the percentage, it says enter the percentage as a number without the percent symbol. Okay, so you're just going to figure out what percentage that was. We talked about that last week. 2 out of 3, 67%. And then the raw score, that is the total number of points possible. Okay? So you're going to do that for each learning goal. So if you have, when you look at your pre-test, if you have 3 questions for learning goal 1, then that's what your raw score is going to be. Okay? Your mastery score is going to be, what did you consider to be mastery? So if it's 3 out of 3 or 2 out of 3, and then whatever that percentage is. Okay? And then down here, it's going to be listed for every single student individually.
Can I interject this?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This spreadsheet is designed to do from these tabs left to right, and what I mean by that is on this first screen, you want to fill in your name and all of the classroom data first before you start going to the learning goals. Because what will happen, just to show you, is it's going to fill in, so for instance here I'll just put, because no one will figure out who GW and PL are. When I start going to the other pages, you're going to start seeing that automatically filled in. So another way to think about it, if you start clicking on cells and it won't let you enter data, that probably means you're not supposed to enter anything on that cell, that it gets filled in from somewhere else. So I get a lot of emails about that. I'm trying to put in the names and it won't let me put in the names. Well, did you put the names in the demographic page? No, that's why.
So, and that chart you may have already filled that one out when we talked about some of the demographic information. But that's why you want to start that, because it will pre-populate.
That's probably one question, but when we do it for each student, do you want us to do the number correct or the percent? Or both?
Number.
The number?
Yeah,
Okay.
always do number. The only place you're going to put a percent is right there on that map.
It does all the calculating for you. So you don't, all you have to do is put it in.
So once you get all your data in there, can you maybe put a couple scores for you and me?
Sure. I'll get you back
Make
to
sure
last
I'm
time.
better. And then I'm going to show you and you can kind of watch, I'll talk, you can watch, he's gonna put scores in there. And as you go through some of the other tabs, they're bar graphs, and it's going to populate for you. The bar graph is going to be there, you're not gonna have to do that. Remember I told you we're not concerned, hopefully you can do a bar graph, but we're not concerned that you can do one, we're concerned that you can analyze it. So just continue to watch for a little bit and you'll see the graphs as he continues through. So you put the data in, that's why it's real important to start with the first one and gradually go through, and it will just keep populating that data for you in a bar graph form. And they're labeled as to task 1A, 1B, and when you get to those, will you go back to the narrative part,
Okay.
in their actual TPA?
But I'm enjoying this.
I know you are, I'm sorry. I think they get the idea. You get the idea? Okay. So you will see where it's asking you about each of those, and it will tell you where to put them in. So you're going to put in those graphs, you're just going to copy and paste, put them in your template, because we won't go to Chart Maker and look at those. You need to put them here in your template, in your TPA. And then you're going to talk about them, okay?
We can put one in just.
Oh, okay, so he's showing you, he's putting one in, he's just copying and pasting, put it in, bless you. And make sure you don't put them in until you have all of your data in the chart, or you're going to have half charts like this. Okay? And so then it's easier for you now to look at that and say, okay, I'm going to analyze it. Okay? That's it for task 6. But don't think that task 6 is just putting your data into ChartMaker and you're done. You still need to look at the questions or the statements that are being asked of you, which is mostly analyze your data. Okay. Questions? I think when you start putting the data in and you see it populate, you'll understand it a little bit better. But if not, you can always email Mrs. Priest or one of us. But if you email her, she'll send it to us and make sure that you get an answer. Okay? But usually when students start putting it in for themselves, they see, oh, I know what that's doing. And then you just copy and paste it and talk about it. This is a big section. Okay? I really don't want to say it's more important than the others. It's not, but it's really important because we're trying here, you're trying to tell us, did your teaching impact learning? So if you can teach a whole unit and your students don't improve or they worsen their scores, I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm going to say there was no impact there at all. Okay? And you don't want that. You don't want to make it up either, but you know, you're going to see some improvement. Yes.
I've already done my pre-test.
Okay.
And I had kind of an interesting dynamic that's emerged.
Okay.
And students did well in some parts, we had in other parts. But it's like a split. Students did well in one part and they got in the other.
Oh, okay.
Vice versa.
Okay.
So it was a combination of like multiple choice, some matching, some flow chart at the end to complete, and some little cartoons they needed to analyze.
Okay.
And I understood through going through, looking at it, that students that struggle to understand the concept of bias,
Okay.
easily confused. They don't understand the basic definition of political uncertainty
Okay.
either. But the students that did really well were not really only a very small portion really well the cartoons the best they did well to average. They did awful on multiple choice matching. And so I don't know how that's going to play out. You know, because going through a lot of those things, but in my head I'm like thinking like it's going to be a lot of writing, a lot of comparing and contrasting. so I'm worried about writing too much.
Okay, there's no too much, okay? So let me just help you understand there's no too much. There is too little. Okay, bless you. There's too little, but that's just, usually that means you just didn't elaborate, you didn't, when it said describe, maybe you listed, you didn't describe, or you know, instead of analyzing, you just said, all my students passed. Okay, well, let's talk about why or where, why. But I wanted to say one thing about what you mentioned, and that's true for you as students, and you probably know this, but that's something to keep in mind as you start teaching as well. Some of your students do great on essay type questions. Some of them bomb those, but they do great on your multiple choice, fill in the blank, those kinds of questions. So it's really good when you give a test, and I'm sure you talked about this in assessment and all that, when you give a test, do some varieties. Just like you, I mean, if I said, okay, right now we're going to take an essay test, some of you may say yes, and some of you may say, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Or if we're going to take an objective type test, you know, some of you may get really excited because that's the type that you do well on versus essay, or vice versa. So that's good that you had some variety, and I can definitely see those that did well on this part probably didn't on this, and vice versa, and that's probably the reason.
There was some things that were across the board that everyone was.
Okay, so those are definitely things you want to include in your unit. The things that, but it didn't sound like there were a couple of things that everybody got. Okay, had there been, then those are things that you probably just want to pull out of your unit, because again, why waste time on something that they already know? Take it a step further. Yes?
So if we have a student that scores poorly, like on our pretest, just because they refuse to answer it, can we like notify that like they scored low because they just didn't answer it?
Yes. And that's a good thing to put in your comment section. That will happen. You'll have students who say, well, I'm not going to take this test. You already told me it's not for a grade, so I really don't care. And they'll sit there and they may or may not put anything down. And, you know, even when you become, and you're almost there, but when you become a real teacher and you're on your own 24/7, you're going to have those students. At that point, you can decide what you're going to do with them. Now, with some conversations with your teacher and supervisor and all that, it may just be, okay, so you turn in a blank paper, and he or she may do the same thing for the post-test, knowing that it's for a grade. But those are things that you can comment about.
We would do that here.
Yes, in this comment section right here.
Because I have a couple of students. who
Yeah. And that's common. We see that all the time. Yeah. Yes.
So if my students end up doing extremely well on the pretest, not expecting to be, is it okay to create a new pre and post test, or do I just create a new post test with more involved questions and more deep thinking skills?
If there's enough, and your class as a whole did really well on the majority of the pretest, I would probably write a new pretest, because it sounds like maybe you're going to have to go in a totally different direction for your unit. But if there's enough in there that you can say, well, they understand the basic level, but now I'm going to go a little bit further, go ahead and put the basic stuff on the post-test, just to make sure you didn't have really good guessers. Because there are students out there that can guess their way through a test and, you know, do really well, and they don't know anything. And if you want to add a couple things, you're not going to have anything to compare it to, so you got to be careful with that. But if for your sake, if you want to give them a separate one just to see if they can go a little bit further, that's not going to be part of this. You can include it in your discussion, but you're just seeing if they can go a little bit further, because they knew so much in the beginning.
All right, thank you.
Mhm. Yes?
Do all of the learning goals within our unit have to be assessed within the pre and post tests?
Do all learning goals have to be assessed in the pre and the post?
Because like I'm doing like research skills through one of my lessons, and I'm not really sure how to include that on a pre and post like written test.
What I typically say is, whatever your unit is on, those are the questions that need to be on your pre and your post. So if you're, and I think I used this example at some point, but if your unit is some science concept, but at the end, you're gonna have them write a paper about it, the skills that they're gonna do in the research and the grammar and all that, some of them they're gonna come with, we hope. Some of them, and you're not really teaching those in the unit, so you don't necessarily have to put those on the pre and the post. Just whatever your unit encompasses. Yes?
So that raises a question because what I understood is I have to include standards for every subject that, like actual standards referring to.
But she didn't ask that.
So,
So you're different, again, okay, because you're in the year long and you have a little different,
so I'm right though. I understand right.
you're fine.
Okay.
Yes.
If we have additional objectives that we're not measuring on our pre and post, would we just put those in the individual template that has each day and not in task 2, or do you want them also in task 2 even though they're not assessed by the pre-post?
I would probably just put those in the unit lesson plans.
I think that was like more my question.
Oh, was that, okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
How you want them within the TPA if they're not in the
Yeah,
pre-post
right,
test.
I would just put those in the individual lesson plans. So Bree, if we need to talk about that, just let me know,
Like
but,
a misunderstanding, so I just want to clarify.
okay, you're fine. Other questions? Okay, then let's look at task 7. Task 7 is really easy, because basically it's a reflection, and I shouldn't say it's easy. It's easy in the explanation. It's easy on my part to explain to you, because it's reflection. All right, there's 4 parts to it, and so you have each of the prompts, and you are going to be responding to insights on teaching and learning, professional collaboration practice or collaborative practice, implications for future teaching, and professional growth. Okay? So those are the 4 reflection pieces that you're going to be addressing. Those are listed in the chart, but the questions or the statements, I think there's 2 for each. I think there's an A-B for each, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so it asks you about those, okay? It just asks you to talk about that. So you're taking into consideration your entire unit. I probably would not do this piece until the very end, after you've taught your unit, after you've given your post-test. You know, like I said, task 1 could be done halfway through your unit. You should have already done it to get it out of the way, but if you didn't, you could do it at any time. Task 7, I wouldn't do it in the beginning, because there are going to be some things that you're going to discover as you go through your unit that you want to put here. Okay. I will tell you that sometimes this is the task that is not elaborated on enough, and sometimes goes back to say you need to say more. So I'm not asking you to write pages and pages and pages, but just make sure that you address what the statement says. And when you finish task 7, 4B, and everything else has been addressed, I would proof it, or do a spell check, or do something, and then you can copy and paste if you haven't been typing in this, which you probably shouldn't be, just copy and paste it in,
Save first.
save it, and hit your submit button. Okay? Before 11:59 on March the 5th. Which is a Thursday, I think, right? Yes, it's a Thursday, so, and you will have already started your second placement. So it might be best for a lot of you to go ahead and try to get it done the end of February, which, do you know what, was it Saturday? What's Saturday? February the 1st. So we're down to, okay, in a couple days. So a month sometimes sounds like a long time, especially if you have a special trip coming up, or when graduation is a month away, it's going to seem like forever. But don't think that month right now is forever, because you gotta get this done, okay? Okay, so here's how the evaluation goes. Once you submit it, when we know the results. What I'm trying to think, I don't have the exact dates in front of me. I can get my phone and see if I can look at the calendar. But I give the evaluators the first time 3 weeks to grade. Usually Thanksgiving break and spring break falls in there. Let's see. All right, March the 5th. Which we don't get March.
Yeah, you go by wherever your school is if you.
I think
It's like April.
The first round of evaluation grades are due the 27th, I think. Okay, so they have 3 weeks and a day. But they won't get their assignments until probably on Friday or Saturday, or maybe even Monday the 9th. So they'll have roughly 3 weeks to get those done. And all I can tell you is sometimes we have a middle person working with you between us. Sometimes we don't. So there was a time when evaluators didn't want the students to know who the evaluator was, and so we had a middle person. Now, most of them really don't care. So, and it's easier, if I'm evaluating you, it's easier for me to just say, listen, task 6, part 2 isn't working, or this is what you need to do, and, you know, it's okay. I don't care that you know that I'm evaluating yours. I'm just, so we can work back and forth. Instead of me sending it to somebody else and somebody else sending it to you, and then you have a question, you send it to that person, and then it comes back to me, and then, you know, it takes forever. So because I don't think when we put the grades out there, or we put the scores out there, everybody has to be evaluated before that can happen. So what we typically say is, and I will tell Mrs. Priest to let you know when that, I'm positive. If it's not the 27th, it's the week before. So by the end of March, if you have not gotten an email from someone that says you need to redo tasks 1, 2, 6, and 7, or whatever. Oh, that's mild for some, but no, it's okay. You have a chance to redo them. If you have not gotten that email, then chances are, I'm not going to make a blanket statement and say definitely, but chances are you're good. Okay? So after the first round of evaluations are due, the 27th, then it's week by week. So if you get an email that says you need to, redo tasks, whatever, you'll have a week till the following Friday to get it done. Then the evaluator has a week to get it graded. If there are more, or you didn't do enough, there won't be new, but if you didn't do enough, it'll come back to you and, you'll have to redo, you still didn't address whatever and ask in task 2. Week, 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 week. And I think there's only 3 rounds because we've run out of time. So when your evaluator says you did not elaborate or you did not do what the task says, please read that task and make sure that you do what it says, because I will tell you, we have had a student who was told there was a little more time earlier, 4 times, to do the exact same thing. In my opinion, at some point we say, you're done. Okay? I mean, if you can't do what I ask you to do after 4 times, we've got a problem. And I think you probably feel that same way if you're telling your students 4 times to do the same thing over and over and over and over. Something's going on there. Either I'm not communicating well, you're not understanding, or you're just doing whatever you want to do. Okay? So you're not gonna have 4 chances, I think you only have 3. But it would be nice to go into the middle of your second placement, because you will have already started it. You'll be close to the end, and just, I won't say relax, but at least relax as far as the TPA goes. All right? Otherwise, you're gonna be up until graduation. We've had some people say, gosh, am I even gonna graduate? Well, I don't know, we're still grading it or whatever, because there was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay? I don't foresee that happening, and when I say it happens, it does, but I'm not talking about handfuls of students. I'm talking about 1 or 2.
Over how many years?
Over how many, this is what, year number 5, 6, I don't know, 5, maybe. Okay, so just, if you get an email from your evaluator or from somebody saying, redo whatever task, just do it. What we typically ask is when you make changes, if you have to make changes because the evaluator didn't give you a 2 or better, highlight your changes. That way when we look at it again, we don't have to start all over and figure out, now was this the same as before or it wasn't, because we don't still have those. Well, we can get them, but we don't keep the old copies. So just highlight your changes. Oh, was there a hand somewhere? Yes, I'm sorry.
Do we do another unit for our second grade?
You do,
Okay,
but it's not a TPA.
but it's still a unit.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, let me say, when I said it's not the TPA, and I am not saying this to scare you, I'm telling you this to do what you're supposed to do. We have had students fail the TPA in the first placement. The reason we make you do it in the first placement is so that you have a second chance before we say you're not passing student teaching. So I think it's only happened maybe, I don't know, 2 times, 3 times, no more than 5 that I can think of, over the 5 or 6 years. But if it's not passing and it can't be passed, because there are some things, if you continue to do what you want to do and you don't listen to what the evaluator tells you, and time is up and you're out of your first placement, and it was a video issue, you can't go back to your first placement and video again. You're done with that. So you're going to have to video in the second, which means you're going to have to teach the unit again, which is not the same one that you're going to do for your second placement. And you're pretty much going to have to start from scratch. But it's not going to happen if you do what you're supposed to do. Okay? We allow time for that. So when it's due, that first word that you hear back from your evaluator, do what you're supposed to do. Okay? Double check, make sure the video has what it's supposed to have on it. I'm not trying to scare you. I think I did. I see heads down, but I'm being honest with you. I mean, if I just stand up here and say, oh, everybody passes, no big deal, don't worry about it, don't even, spend an hour and turn it in and pick, it's whatever. Then you're all going to be redoing it. Okay? But it rarely happens that somebody has to redo it. But it has happened. For those of you that are conscientious, you're good students, you do what you're supposed to do, it's not going to happen to you. Because as I look around the room, I don't see anybody. I'm sorry, I don't know the secondary majors, most of you, but I'm assuming that you're right on, you're going to do it, everything's good. Can we smile? I mean, I'm done. So I don't know what you're doing, but there are no questions, right? We're good? If something comes up, email Mrs. Priest, myself, Mr. Watson, Dr. Watson, and we can get you an answer quickly. I don't know, supervisors, are you meeting with them? Mr. Messinger, are you meeting, yeah, okay, so if your supervisor is here, meet with him or her. And if not, okay, there's 3. If not, yes. You're good to go.
I did not.
Oh, yeah.